Hi again, everybody. Welcome to the Bricks and Bleachers podcast. All things Chicago Cubs in under 10 minutes. Cubs are heading into the All-Star break in first place. More on the National League Central and a look around the entire National League just ahead. Plus a preview of the All-Star festivities involving some Cubs players. Cubs are 54-38 with one more game to play prior to the All-Star break. Regardless of the outcome this afternoon in San Diego, the Cubs will head into the break in sole possession of the division lead, currently up 1.5 games on the Milwaukee Brewers, who have lost 5 in a row and 7 of their last 10. Cubs were mentioned as a potential landing spot for Manny Machado back in May. The Brewers were more recently considered contenders to land the O's shortstop. Now it looks like neither team will land him, according to the most recent reports. St. Louis Cardinals currently one game over 500, third place in the National League Central at 47-46, 7.5 games back of the Cubs. And the Cardinals made a move last night. Ownership moving on from manager Mike Matheny. He was let go after the Cards lost 8-2 to Cincinnati yesterday. Hitting coaches John Mabry and Bill Miller were cut loose as well. Team trying to avoid missing the playoffs for a third straight year. That said, Matheny has never had a losing record as manager, and he's been there over 6 years now. Last time a manager was let go despite having a winning record was 2008 when Milwaukee cut loose Ned Yost. Late in the year, the team was in a slump at that point. They turned it around and made the playoffs that same year. Dexter Fowler was recently called out by the Cardinals front office. Pitching and defense both have struggled as well because the Cardinals offense is actually pretty good. It's still the top half of the National League with almost 4.4 runs a game. Mike Shildt announced this morning as interim manager in St. Louis. Shildt, most recently the bench coach for Mike Matheny. Pittsburgh largely flying under the radar this year. They've had a couple big winning streaks, and then they kind of balance those out with some lengthy slumps as well. Pirates are 2 games under 500, 9 games back of the Cubs. And then you've got the Cincinnati Reds, an interesting team at 9 games under 500. That is a high water mark for them, at least a recent high water mark for them, because they quickly tumbled out of the gate. They were 3-15 when they made a managerial change. Jim Riggleman has really got the team going in the right direction, doing quite well here in recent weeks. They have potential to play spoiler to contending teams later in the year. Cubs and Reds with 2 more series this year. That's 7 games against each other. Cubs not just leading the Central Division, but they are assured sole possession of the best record in the National League at the All-Star break for the first time since 2008. I'd say the National League East has been most surprising. Nationals all sorts of issues, led by first-year manager Davey Martinez, who, of course, came from the Cubs staff. Nationals right now 1 game under 500, 6.5 games behind the Philadelphia Phillies, and you've got Philadelphia at 53-41, a game and a half advantage over Atlanta. Phillies off to a slow start. Manager Gabe Kaplan called out for a number of unconventional moves early in the season, but much like their fellow Philadelphia 76ers, the story in Philadelphia with these Phillies is trust the process. Braves are a young team, probably even surprising themselves with some of the success they've had so far. And then out in the West, 4 teams are over 500. That division wide open. Arizona 53-43, leading the way. Half-game lead on the Dodgers. Colorado and San Fran are 2.5 and 3.5 games back, respectively, in that division. If Manny Machado gets moved to the National League, they'll likely be headed east to Philadelphia or west to the Dodgers. All-Star game is this Tuesday night at Nationals Park, and the Cubs have 2 going into that game. Javi Baez starting at second base for the National League, and Wilson Contreras will start behind the plate. John Lester, originally named to that squad, but he has since been replaced by Zach Greinke of the Diamondbacks. Lester pitching today for the Cubs, so it would not be good for Lester or the Cubs to have Lester pitching again Tuesday night in an exhibition game, and of course that would affect his availability for the Cubs right after the break as well. Home Run Derby happens tomorrow night, Monday night at Nats Park. Javi Baez and Kyle Schwarber will both participate. Futures game later this afternoon at Nationals Park, and the Cubs have a participant there as well, catcher Miguel Amaya of the Single-A South Bend Cubs. He's a 19-year-old from Panama, originally known as a defensive genius, but he's been doing pretty well offensively as well. So let's take a look at the Cubs today, wrapping up a 3-game set in San Diego, hoping to complete the sweep. An exciting 5-4 win Friday night in 10 innings. Cubs put up double digits last night, skating past the Padres 11-4. John Lester on the mound this afternoon for the Cubs, 11-2 on the year. No decision his last time out. Had reeled off 7 straight wins. Eric Lauer on the mound for the Padres. He's 5-5. Lauer with 6 earned runs over his last 24 2/3 innings. So we'll see if his hot streak will continue. 4:10 Eastern on WGN. Cubs are off Monday through Wednesday, back at it Thursday. A shorter All-Star break than last year, really the last few years. Cubs-Cards Thursday night at Wrigley Field. That's the first of a 5-game series through Sunday. You got a day-night doubleheader on Saturday, which includes a makeup game from earlier in the year. Cubs are just 3-5 against the Cards so far this season. After time off, and with the Cards having a new manager, it could be an interesting weekend. And really, you could extend that through the following weekend in St. Louis, because the Cubs and Cards will meet there. 8 of the Cubs' first 12 out of the All-Star break will be against their division rival from St. Louis. Bricks Bleachers on Facebook and Twitter. Love for you to connect there and subscribe to the show on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to your podcasts. That way you never miss an episode. And like that, you are all caught up on all things Chicago Cubs. Promise to keep you in the know in under 10 minutes. This is the Bricks and Bleachers Podcast.